Hey everyone, welcome back to Chat Like a Native, the podcast that helps you unlock fluency and confidence in English.
That's right.
And today, we're diving deep into a topic that I know is so relevant for intermediate learners. How to stop translating in your head and start thinking directly in English.
Yes.
If you can make this shift, it can seriously transform how easily and naturally you speak.
Absolutely.
And it can even make understanding native speakers so much easier.
For sure.
So stick with us.
It's a real game changer.
I know so many learners hit this point where their vocabulary is actually pretty good.
Right.
And they can construct sentences,
Right.
but there's still this hesitation, this feeling of being stuck in translation mode.
Yeah, they feel like they're almost there, but there's just like this little
wall.
This wall.
It's like having a constant mental delay, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking in one language and then you're scrambling to find the equivalent words in English.
Exactly. And it's exhausting. And it makes conversations feel clunky, and it prevents you from truly engaging with the language.
Totally.
And expressing yourself spontaneously.
Okay, so let's unpack this over-translating thing a bit more.
Okay.
What's actually happening in our brains when we do this?
So think about how we learn our first language.
Okay.
We just absorb it naturally through exposure and interaction.
Right.
No dictionaries involved.
Yeah.
But with a second language, our brains try to make sense of it by linking it back to what we already know.
Makes sense.
Our native language. So we create this mental translation process.
Okay.
We map new words onto familiar concepts.
So it's like our brain is creating a bridge between the two languages.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that bridge, while helpful, initially becomes a bottleneck as you progress.
I see.
So instead of just thinking, oh, I'm thirsty,
Yeah.
you might think it first in your native language and then try to find the English equivalent.
Right.
Adds an extra unnecessary step.
And that extra step slows us down.
Yes.
Makes our speech less fluid.
Absolutely.
And can lead to those awkward pauses mid-conversation.
Exactly. You might even force your native language's sentence structure onto English.
Oh, interesting.
Which leads to grammatical errors.
Yes.
And think about the mental energy it takes to translate constantly.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's no wonder learners feel drained after conversations.
Totally. It's like trying to juggle while doing a Rubik's Cube.
Right.
Too much going on at once. But here's the encouraging part. Our brains are incredibly adaptable.
Yes, they are.
With practice, we can rewire them to store information directly in English and bypass that translation step altogether.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Once you start thinking in English, fluency just skyrockets.
That's what we want.
Imagine being able to express your thoughts instantly without that mental back and forth.
It'd be like finally speaking freely after years of having someone whisper translations in your ear.
Exactly. It unlocks this whole new level of confidence and naturalness in your communication.
And not just fluency, right? Thinking in English impacts other areas too.
Absolutely. It significantly boosts your listening comprehension.
Okay.
Because you're processing the language directly, just like native speakers do.
Interesting.
You start picking up on nuances, idioms, humor.
The good stuff.
The good stuff, the things that often get lost in translation.
Right. It's like your brain is finally tuned into the right frequency. You're no longer trying to decipher a coded message.
Exactly.
I like that.
And the benefits go beyond just practical communication.
Really?
It even enhances your creativity.
Wow.
Think about it. If you're not struggling with translation, your mind is free to explore ideas and play with language and express yourself in a more imaginative way.
That makes sense if you're not bogged down in the mechanics of translation.
Yes.
You can actually focus on the content and just be more present in the conversation.
Precisely. You can contribute more meaningfully, engage more deeply, and truly connect with others on an intellectual and emotional level.
So it sounds like this shift from over-translating to thinking directly in English is a major turning point for any language learner. It is.
It impacts not just how we speak, but how we listen, understand, and even think.
It really does. It's about moving beyond simply knowing the language to actually inhabiting it, making it a part of your internal world.
And that's a pretty exciting prospect, isn't it?
It is.
To be able to truly live in the language you're learning.
It's a journey, of course, but it's one that's incredibly rewarding and transformative. Well, in the next part of our deep dive, let's get practical.
Yeah.
We'll explore some proven techniques and exercises that can help us make this mental leap and start thinking in English. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Welcome back to Chat Like a Native.
We are ready to get practical.
Yes.
And explore some techniques for making that shift from translating
Right.
to thinking in English in part one. We talked about the importance of immersion.
Yeah.
But let's go a step further.
Okay.
How can we make immersion truly effective?
Yeah.
Especially when, life gets busy.
It's about being intentional and weaving English into your daily life, even in small ways. So instead of just passively watching a show,
Right.
engage with it. Try to predict what characters will say, repeat phrases that sound cool, or write down interesting vocabulary.
Okay.
Think of it as an active workout for your English brain.
So it's not just about quantity of exposure, but the quality of engagement.
Exactly.
Sure.
Even if you only have 15 minutes, make those 15 minutes count.
I like that.
Let's say you're into cooking.
Okay.
Instead of scrolling through recipes in your native language, challenge yourself to follow an English recipe video. Pay attention to the verbs they use, the order of steps, even the little jokes they crack.
That's fun.
It's about making it an immersive experience.
I love that. And it seems like a lot of this boils down to forming new habits. Right?
Yes,
Because translating is such an automatic process.
It is.
It's like we would train our brains to do something different.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful tools for rewiring your brain is self-talk.
Okay.
It might feel strange at first.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But talking to yourself in English throughout the day is incredibly effective.
Interesting.
Narrate what you're doing, describe your surroundings, even have little internal debates with yourself.
So instead of just thinking I need coffee,
right,
I could say to myself, man, I'm really craving a strong cup of coffee right now.
Exactly.
Maybe with a splash of milk.
Yes, perfect.
I would like it.
It might sound silly, but it gets you comfortable with forming thoughts in English spontaneously.
Okay.
And don't worry about making mistakes. You're your own audience.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a private rehearsal.
Right.
For those real-life conversations.
Okay. I like that private rehearsal.
Now, while self-talk is great for everyday situations, visualization can take things a step further.
Okay.
This technique is especially helpful for building vocabulary and grasping more abstract concepts.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How does visualization work?
So instead of translating words directly, create a mental image of the concept you want to express. For instance, if you're learning the word resilience, don't just memorize the definition.
Okay.
Close your eyes and imagine a tree bending in a strong wind.
Wow.
But not breaking, or a boxer getting knocked down, but getting back up.
That's so much more powerful than just a dictionary definition.
It is.
It creates an emotional connection to the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you describe that image using English,
right,
the words flow more naturally because they're linked to a vivid sensory experience.
This feels like a great way to break free from those mental translation chains, too.
Absolutely. And it's something you can practice anywhere, anytime.
So I could be waiting for the bus?
Yes.
And I could visualize my dream vacation.
Exactly.
And describe it in English.
Perfect. Or cooking dinner. Imagine the flavors and textures you're creating and narrate the process in your head.
It's like a secret language workout that nobody even knows you're doing.
I love that. And speaking of working out, the shadowing technique we mentioned earlier is like a heavy lifting session for your pronunciation and fluency.
Okay.
Remember, you listen to a short audio clip in English and try to mimic the speaker as closely as possible.
Like you're their voice double in a movie.
Exactly. It trains your ear to pick up on those subtle nuances of intonation, rhythm, and connected speech that are so crucial for sounding natural.
Plus, it helps you internalize those grammatical structures without having to consciously analyze them.
Precisely. You're essentially absorbing the language at a subconscious level, which is incredibly powerful.
I'm sure many listeners are thinking these techniques sound great.
Right.
But changing lifelong thought patterns is tough.
Yeah, it can be.
What advice do you have for those who feel overwhelmed or discouraged?
First and foremost, be kind to yourself.
Oh.
Remember, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
That's true.
There will be days when you feel like you're making amazing progress.
Yeah.
And others where you feel stuck.
Right.
That's perfectly normal.
It's like any fitness journey.
Right.
There are good days and bad days.
There are. And the key is to keep showing up, keep practicing, and most importantly, celebrate those small wins along the way.
Yes, I love that.
Did you manage to think in English for a whole minute while cooking?
Right.
That's a victory.
Totally.
Did you catch yourself using a new idiom naturally in a conversation? High five.
Those little moments of progress fuel the motivation to keep going.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about being perfect.
Oh.
It's about making progress.
Yeah.
Embrace those mistakes as learning opportunities.
Right.
And don't let them derail you.
So it's a mindset shift as much as anything else.
Exactly. You have to believe that you can do it.
Okay.
Even when it feels challenging.
Because ultimately we're talking about rewiring our brains.
Yes.
Which takes time, effort, and a lot of self-compassion.
It does, but the rewards are so worth it.
Yeah.
Imagine the freedom and confidence you'll feel when you can finally express yourself fluently and naturally in English.
And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive. Next, we'll explore even more strategies for staying motivated, setting effective goals, and making this shift to thinking in English a lasting change. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Chat Like a Native.
We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into thinking directly in English.
And so far, we've explored a bunch of techniques from immersion and self-talk to visualization and shadowing.
It's been like unlocking a treasure chest of strategies.
I like that.
But now the big question is, how do we make these changes stick? How do we go from practicing these techniques to actually integrating them into our daily lives?
That's where the power of routine comes in.
Like hitting the gym for your English skills.
Exactly. Just like with physical fitness, consistency is key.
Okay.
So the first step is to carve out a dedicated time slot for English practice each day.
Okay.
And don't feel pressured to block off hours. Even 15 to 20 minutes can make a huge difference if you're consistent.
So it's about quality over quantity.
Absolutely. The magic happens when you make it a non-negotiable part of your day. Maybe it's first thing in the morning while you're having coffee or during your commute. Find what works for you and stick to it.
Okay.
Think of it as a date with your English self.
I love that analogy. But routine doesn't have to mean boring. All right.
No, not at all.
We can still make it fun.
Of course, choose activities you genuinely enjoy.
Okay.
If you're a bookworm, dedicate those 15 minutes to reading a chapter of an English novel. If you love music, try writing down the lyrics of your favorite English song and then singing along. It's about making it a pleasurable experience.
Because when it's enjoyable, we're more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. And remember, variety is key too.
Okay.
Mix things up to keep your brain engaged and prevent boredom.
Right.
One day it's shadowing a podcast. The next, it's writing your English journal. Keep it fresh and exciting.
Now, while routine is important,
Yes.
having clear goals can really amplify our progress.
For sure.
In part 2, we touched on the SMART goal system. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Absolutely. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay.
So let's say your goal is to feel more confident speaking in social situations.
Okay.
Instead of vaguely saying, I want to improve my conversational skills,
Right.
make it SMART. You could say, within 3 months, I want to be able to confidently introduce myself and talk about my hobbies for 5 minutes with a native speaker.
That's so much clearer.
It is.
And more actionable.
Yeah.
I can actually picture myself doing that.
Exactly. And because it's measurable, you can track your progress.
Right.
Maybe each week you practice introducing yourself and talking about a different hobby.
Yeah.
Then you can actually see how you're improving.
That sense of progress can be incredibly motivating.
It is. It fuels your desire to keep going.
Yeah.
And don't forget to celebrate those milestones no matter how small.
I like that.
Bought a new English book? Treat yourself to a nice cup of tea while you read it.
Nice.
Nailed a conversation with a native speaker? Do a little happy dance.
Love it.
It reinforces the positive feelings associated with learning.
It's like giving yourself a high five for all the effort you're putting in.
Exactly. And those positive feelings are contagious. Share your successes with friends, family, or fellow learners. Surrounding yourself with a supportive community can make a world of difference.
It's true. Having that encouragement and accountability can really help us stay on track, especially when those inevitable doubts creep in.
Absolutely. And speaking of community, don't underestimate the power of connecting with other English learners. Whether it's an online forum, a language exchange group, or a local meetup, having that shared experience can be incredibly motivating and inspiring.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders cheering you on every step of the way.
I love that image. And don't be shy about reaching out to native speakers for help and guidance.
That's a good point.
Most people are thrilled to share their language and culture. You can find language partners online, join conversation groups, or even strike up conversations with friendly faces in your community.
It's amazing how much we can learn from simply talking to people.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into thinking in English,
Yes.
remember this journey is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
There will be hurdles, there will be moments of doubt, but the rewards are immeasurable.
Totally.
Embrace the challenge, celebrate the victories, and never stop believing in yourself.
That's such a powerful message.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful and inspiring.
I'm glad to hear that.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching English learning.
I'm so glad. Remember, thinking in English is a skill you can develop.
Okay.
It takes time, effort, and a sprinkle of fun.
Yeah.
But the rewards are truly transformative.
So to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep experimenting, and keep that English brain buzzing.
Until next time, happy chatting.